You remember the silence, don't you? That heavy, unbearable silence, the kind that wraps itself around your chest and tightens until it becomes hard to breathe. Everyone disappeared. The ones who promised they'd be there, gone. The ones who claimed they'd love you forever, vanished. The lights dimmed. The road cracked. And there you were, standing in the middle of a storm with no umbrella, no direction, no strength. But what if I told you you weren't alone? What if I told you every step you thought you took by yourself was carried? The first time it all broke was on a Tuesday. Gray clouds smeared across the sky, like bruises on soft skin. Isla stood outside the hospital, gripping the discharge papers that felt more like a death sentence than a diagnosis. Her mother's condition had worsened. There was no cure, no miracle drug, just time, and even that was slipping like sand between her fingers. No one had come, not her father, who had left long ago, not her friends, who suddenly had too much going on, not even her older brother, who always promised he'd protect her. The echo of silence screamed louder than any betrayal ever could. The days that followed blurred into one another. Isla tried to keep working. She smiled when she had to. She responded to texts with robotic cheer. But inside, something was collapsing. Her body showed up, but her soul had gone quiet. Every night, she'd sit by her mother's bedside, hold her frail hand as the machines hummed and beeped. There were no words to offer, only prayers whispered between sobs. Only pleas sent into the universe. Why God? Why me? Why her? One night, Isla broke. The hallway was dark, lit only by the faint glow of an exit sign. She slumped against the wall and slid to the cold floor, her head buried in her knees. That was when she muttered something she never thought she would. If you're real, prove it, because I don't see you anymore. I don't feel you. That night, her dream was different. She found herself in a pitch-black room, not a single crack of light, just darkness pressing in, suffocating, swallowing. She wandered blindly, arms stretched out, searching for something, anything. And then she heard it, a soft whisper, gentle, familiar. I'm here. She turned, but there was no one, just that voice again, closer now. You were never alone. Suddenly, a warm light flickered in the distance. It wasn't bright, but it was enough to give her one direction, one path. She followed it, each step lighter than the last. And as she walked, she felt a presence behind her, something unseen, but not unfelt, something steady, strong. When she awoke, her pillow was soaked in tears, but not from despair, from something else, something softer. For the first time in months, she felt a strange peace in her chest. The storm hadn't passed, but the fear of it had. Still, the days were merciless. Her mother slipped further into silence. Bills piled up. Isla's job was on the line. Her landlord gave her notice. Everything continued to crumble. But Isla, she didn't. Something within her had shifted. She started walking to work instead of taking the bus. Not because she wanted to, but because she had no choice. Yet each walk gave her time to think, to breathe, to speak. Not loudly, but inwardly. She whispered those same words again and again. Carry me, God, just carry me. And somehow, things held together. She wasn't sure how. She couldn't explain why. A stranger in line one day paid for her groceries when her card declined. Her supervisor, who had always been indifferent, suddenly offered to cover her shifts. Her neighbor, who barely spoke, offered her a ride to the hospital during a rainstorm. Every gesture was small, but they stacked like stepping stones across a broken bridge. One by one, they led her forward. And though she still cried, still felt the ache, it didn't crush her the same. Because each time she whispered, carry me, someone responded. But the test was not over. The phone call came just after midnight. Her mother was gone. Isla dropped the phone. The air punched from her lungs. For a moment, the world spun. Everything blurred. And then silence. Not the same silence as before. This was different. This silence had presence. A hand. She swore she felt it. Not physical, but weightless, resting on her shoulder. And then that voice again, not in her ears, but in her chest. I carried you through the dark. I still do. The funeral was a quiet one. Not many came. But Isla wasn't focused on who didn't show up. She was focused on what remained. And that's when it hit her. All those times she thought she was walking alone, she wasn't. That dream, that light, that presence, it hadn't left her. It had been carrying her all along, not erasing the pain, but sharing the weight. As she stood at her mother's grave, the wind whispered through the trees. Her tears fell, not just from grief, but from gratitude, because even in her deepest sorrow, she had never been truly alone. You see, the darkness doesn't mean you've been abandoned. It doesn't mean you've failed or been forgotten. Sometimes, the darkest paths are the ones where you are carried the most, not by the world, not by the people you thought would stand by you, but by the one who walks unseen, listens in silence, and lifts when your knees buckle. Isla's journey isn't over. The storm hasn't fully passed. But what she's about to face next will challenge her faith in ways she never imagined. Because sometimes when you're carried through the dark, it's to prepare you to carry others. They say the hardest part isn't the storm. It's what comes after. When the winds have died down, but the damage remains. When the world expects you to move on, smile, rebuild, while you're still sweeping up the shards of your soul. Isla had been carried through the dark. But now came the test that would ask, can you walk through the light alone? Or will the same presence that lifted her when she fell still be there when the road changes direction? In the months after her mother's passing, Isla moved into a small studio apartment. It wasn't much. A leaky faucet, creaking floorboards, a window that barely opened. But it was hers, paid for with her own hands. And every time she stepped inside, she whispered, "Thank you," not because life was easy, but because she'd learned to notice what others often miss. Peace and stillness, safety and solitude. She began journaling, not pages of bitterness or sadness, but reflections, little moments where she felt God speak. Not through lightning bolts, not through burning bushes, but in subtle, sacred ways. A warm cup of tea left on her desk by a coworker. The unexpected promotion she received, despite others being more qualified. The stranger at the cafe who paid for her drink and said, "God said you needed this today." Each moment layered proof that her story hadn't ended, that maybe, just maybe, she was being prepared for something greater. Then came Maya. Maya was new at the office. Brilliant, but broken. On the outside, she glowed. Confident, clever, but Isla saw through it. The way her hands trembled when she thought no one was looking. The red in her eyes, like someone who hadn't slept without nightmares. And that one day, when she lingered too long in the stairwell, staring down as if gravity whispered to her soul. Isla didn't know what to say, but she knew what it felt like to be on that ledge, figuratively and literally. So she sat beside her. No lecture, no judgment, just silence and presence. And eventually Maya broke. Through tears and clenched fists, she shared stories of abuse, of a family that silenced her pain, of nights she didn't think she'd survive, of prayers that went unanswered. Isla listened, and when the flood of sorrow slowed, she spoke. "I used to think I was alone, too, but I wasn't. I just didn't know I was being carried." Maya looked up, confused, but Isla didn't elaborate. She simply offered a small notebook and said, "Write down the little things, the good things, even if they feel tiny, especially if they feel tiny." That night, Maya wrote, "Someone saw me today. Someone sat with me and didn't ask me to smile. Maybe I'm still here for a reason." The cycle began again. Not just healing, but passing on what was given. Isla wasn't just surviving anymore. She was guiding. But healing isn't linear. Weeks later, Isla received a letter, one she hadn't expected. Her father, who had walked out when she was 7, wanted to meet. Not out of guilt, not to apologize, but to explain. That's what the letter said. To explain myself. Anger surged. Memories returned. Her mother crying at night, holding on to promises that had long turned to ash. Isla felt the weight of it all resurface. She wanted to scream, to run, to slam the door and pretend he never existed. But something stronger tugged at her. Not forgiveness, not yet, but the echo of that same voice. You were carried to the dark, now carry the light into someone else's. So she met him at a small park bench, the same one where he used to feed pigeons with her on Saturdays. Time had aged him, wrinkles like tired rivers down his cheeks. He looked up, eyes full of uncertainty. I didn't expect you'd come, he admitted. I didn't expect I would either, she replied. He talked. She listened, about his addictions, his regrets, his shame. He didn't ask for a second chance. He just wanted her to know that he saw now what he missed, what he broke, what he lost. Isla felt tears press at the back of her throat, not for him, but for the girl she used to be, the one who used to wait at the window every birthday, the one who'd cry herself to sleep hoping he'd come back. And yet, here she was, not shattered, not hollow, but whole. I hated you, she said plainly, for years, for everything. But then I realized if I stayed in that hate, I'd never move forward. And I did. Without you, I made it. He nodded, lips trembling. I know. I see that now. Isla stood up. I don't know what this means going forward, but I needed to say this to your face. I'm not angry anymore. I'm free. She walked away, not with bitterness, but with closure. That night, she sat by her window. The city below buzzed with light. She opened her journal, flipped to the first page, and wrote, I walked through the dark, and I wasn't alone. Then she paused. On the next line, she wrote, Now I carry others. The next day, she applied for a volunteer role at a trauma support center. Her story wasn't one of perfection, but of persistence. And that's what people needed, not saviors. Just survivors who refused to give up. Over the next few years, Isla met countless souls. People shattered by loss, by betrayal, by life. And to each of them, she didn't offer quick fixes. She offered presence, understanding, a reminder. You may feel alone, but you're not. Even when the world goes silent, he is still carrying you. And every time someone asked her, How did you make it out? She simply smiled and said, I didn't. I was carried. Sometimes the greatest miracles are not in what we gain, but in what we survive, not in what is given, but in what we find the strength to release. Isla learned that the dark doesn't mean God is gone. It means he's closest. Carrying, lifting, whispering in the silence, I'm here. And maybe today you're where she once was. Knees buckling, heartbreaking, wondering if anyone hears your cries. Let me tell you this. You are being carried. Through the tears, through the loneliness, through the confusion. Even if you can't feel it yet, even if you doubt it, he is there. And when the time comes, when you rise from this valley and breathe again, don't forget to turn around, because someone else will need you. Someone else will be standing where you once were, and they'll need a hand to hold, a light to follow. Let your story be that light, because one day, when you look back at the broken path you once walked, you'll whisper with tears in your eyes, I wasn't walking at all. I was being carried.